Hi, I'm Tracey Soltis.
And I'm Kali Alfaro. And you're listening to the Mind Body Studio, a place for anyone who wants to reach their full potential, thrive, and create a life filled with vitality.
Each week, we'll bring you our expertise, giggles, and a splash of quirky to explore real and relevant topics to help you along your life's journey.
We'll bring you science, psychology, and practicality to real life issues.
So, thanks for listening. We know you're going to love it. Okay, welcome back, everyone.
Welcome to today's episode.
It's a beautiful day outside, don't you think?
It really is. The sun is shining. There are a couple of clouds, a little bit crisp.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So, today we're just going to kind of be organic, aren't we? We're just going to go for it and see what comes up today.
Absolutely. We're going to go with the flow and we're going to talk about some real life issues that I think the two of us have faced in the last couple of weeks. And as you would notice in some of our episodes, life throws some curveballs sometimes, and sometimes there's more than one. And today we're going to talk about how do we deal with life unfolding essentially in an organic way.
Yeah, because let's face it, sometimes we can have physical things happen. We can have relationship things that happen, conflicts. We can have, things that just don't really go the way that we think they're going to go.
Absolutely.
And we're not always prepared for those things either. I mean, things can be going along really smoothly and the next thing you know, something's happened and you're like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? And how am I going to deal with that? Because it's easy sometimes just to have a knee-jerk reaction and to react in a way that's probably not ideal, but because you're just not prepared for it and it takes you by surprise, you just haven't given yourself that opportunity to really set yourself up.
Yep. So for our listeners out there, you would already be aware that we bring our expertise from psychology, Tracey's more immunology, biology, and we share our life experiences as well as, some of the cases that we encounter in our own professional clinics. So one of the things that we would really love to share with our audience today is how do you deal with life unfolding and the benefits of investing in a life where you are constantly nourishing the relationships, your body, and the coping mechanisms and the structures that you put around in your life for the good times and for the not so good times. Because we've noticed, we observe ourselves going through this and we observe our clients going through this, and we notice that the people that are constantly aware, constantly on the ball, and having that sense of making changes, implementing strategies, those are the people that bounce back the quickest when life hits you hard. And both Tracey and I have had really challenging weeks. Right.
We really have.
We? There's been physical illness stuff happening. There's been some external circumstances that have been really stressful. Some issues, in each of our personal lives. And we were talking the other day about some of the things that really help us. And for example, I want to share a story with our listeners. And I was on the receiving end of an aggressive and slightly violent episode that really shook me up, right? So in our daily lives, we're not generally exposed to these things. So when we experience that or something that is traumatic, it can really shake our sense of self, our sense of safety. And when I was processing all of these things and thinking about it, there were some really important elements that I really want to talk about, because I think the more prepared you are for life, the better you are equipped to cope with these circumstances that sometimes come out of the blue, right?
Yeah.
And this incident that happened to me was completely out of the blue. And I was exposed to, something really, really unpleasant, unsafe from a stranger. And it shook me up. It really shook me up. And it's times like that where friends that invite you over and make you a home-cooked meal can make the world of difference. People that will allow you to feel whatever it is that you need to feel. Like I went to a friend's house and sat on the couch and wrapped myself in a blanket and just bawled my eyes out and had a cup of tea.
Yeah.
And my friend just allowed that space to unfold.
Isn't that beautiful though? I mean, so if you can go somewhere, if you've got a place that you're able to just go to and fall apart, isn't that just such a beautiful thing in a way?
It is one of the most valuable aspects of human connection, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And it's also a sign of the relationship and the friendship that you have nourished with these people so that they can be there for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
This is why we encourage people to always nourish and look after relationships. It is something that it's the best investment you can do. Having a beautiful mindset, having beautiful health and beautiful people around you are the most valuable assets. Like this stuff is priceless, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it really, really is. And it's funny that we're on this topic because I've almost had the opposite thing happen. Like that's been my week of creating a safe space, creating an environment for a friend who if they come to me, they're able to be vulnerable. They're allowed to let down their boundaries. They're allowed to let down all of those guards that they've got going on, and they are able to collapse. And that person who I've created that space for just won't let that happen. They're just fighting against it. They're pushing me away because there's so much pain going on there. Yeah. And it's very hard to watch that happen as a friend on the side because you want to be there for them, but there's a sense of, there's a lack of vulnerability or an openness or authenticity happening there where you can create those spaces for people, but they've got to feel as though they're able to let that happen, because great things can happen if you go into that space and you're able to essentially heal. It's about healing. And
don't you think though, Tracey, that there is a little bit of magic and a little bit of a dynamic that also we are constantly creating? So the magical aspect of this is that when there is a relationship that you are having with someone and that vulnerability is expressed by one party and it's not received by the other party, then the other party, for example, in your case, then you lean on another relationship where that space is held for you.
Yeah.
So then we start to observe how we're givers in some dynamics.
Yes.
And then we are equal partners in other dynamics where we give and receive equally, right?
Yeah.
And there's this really beautiful, healthy flow.
Yeah.
And then in other aspects, we receive more.
Yeah.
So this is like I love the word that you used at the beginning of our episode. It's organic.
Yeah.
This is an organic flow where we need to learn that we are constantly creating dynamics. So if I'm in a relationship where I'm always giving and someone isn't really giving me back, and then when I really, really need them, I kind of lose my shit because they don't give me anything back. It's sort of like, yeah, okay, it's not nice, but you've created that dynamic.
100%. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree with you anymore. And, I think over time with friendships, dynamics just change so much. There can be a lot of stresses for other people, and even though you try to create the safe space for them, it just doesn't flow the way that it should. It just doesn't organically flow that way. And sometimes you have to reevaluate what that friendship looks like and how you can actually set your own boundaries as well, because you can give too much.
Absolutely.
Let's face it. You can give too much in relationships. And we're not necessarily talking romantic relationships. We're talking friendships
But
here.
romantic relationships are the same.
Absolutely.
right?
We can give too much. And I think that that's okay to a certain point, because sometimes you're a stronger component in that relationship, and so you have got what it takes to hold that person in that space and to give them what it is that they need at the time. And that's okay. That's really important. But there has to be a bit of an exchange in dynamic there as well. And I'm not saying that person then, it's like a tit for tat thing. They have to give something back to you. But there has to be an exchange of some sort that allows you to continually be there for them. If they're constantly putting up a brick wall and you're trying to hold that space for them, gosh, that makes it incredibly difficult.
And damaging for yourself as well, which is
yeah.
why having really strong boundaries is so important. Having strong boundaries, having really clear communication skills, being able to respond to a situation rather than to react. So I want to share what I did to overcome my tiny little traumatic hiccup that I had a few weeks ago. So not only was I blessed to have lovely people come to my support and to my aid when the incident was happening, which is like a real testament of relationships, and like people are there for you when you genuinely need them, right? And I was able to be nourished with food, which is one of our primary ways of feeling safe. And nourishing our body is very nourishing for the soul, especially when you're going through a difficult or traumatic experience. Having like really healthy home cooked meals in a safe space can be incredibly healing. And then using your coping mechanisms. So most of the listeners would know that the ocean, exercise and being in nature and surrounding myself by people that I love and respect is a massive part of my life. So I had a really impromptu getaway, and I grabbed a girlfriend. We went down south and I was in the ocean, in nature, surrounded by trees. We were having a new experience. We went to, a beautiful little vineyard. We took a couple of photos, and it was just like that ability to activate novelty in the brain and to totally disconnect, and sometimes even to get a physical distance, right? To get out of the city, get some fresh air, can be so incredibly healing and rejuvenating. And then to be able to speak to people, like you and I had a conversation about what happened, and about just touching base and saying to people, hey, you know what, I've had this really vulnerable experience that's really shaken me up. Maybe, I'm used to going somewhere on my own, but right now I'm feeling a little bit shaken, so maybe can you come with me?
Yeah.
And that opens up this beautiful space in relationships where when you have the courage to be vulnerable and to ask for help, other people have the opportunity to step up.
And they want to.
I know.
Right? That's the thing, is that sometimes we don't give these relationships enough credit. Is that people do care, like people do genuinely care, and they do want to have that opportunity to step up for you, because it's almost solidifying and validating how much you mean to them and how important you are in their whole environment. So you're giving them that opportunity to really be there for you, and that's so important in friendships or relationships, to give that person that kind of accountability and responsibility. Even saying that though, I mean, if they don't have the capacity to do that for you, at least and
that they're holding you energetically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And so it's funny because you're obviously talking about the situation that happened to you and how, you had that support. And like, I think that's such a beautiful thing that you have so many people around you that you're able to do that for. But for me, like holding space for someone who I care about, but not being able to be there for them, that's also had, quite a significant impact on me as well, because it does test your boundaries as far as how much you're willing to provide or to give to a particular situation, because you can only try so many times, or you can only give so much energy that you have to a situation or to a person before it does start having a negative impact on you as well. And so there is a self-care, there is a duty of care to yourself, that if you happen to be that stronger person and you're watching someone, you know, fall down and go through suffering, and you're trying to help them or hold space or just listen or whatever that might look like, and that's not received the way that you want it to, you have a duty of care to yourself to know your limitations as well, and know when enough is enough, because you can give too much.
Absolutely. And people think that giving everything or going above and beyond to your detriment is the right thing to do. And actually it's not. We need to apply the mentality that if the cabin pressure is lost in the aeroplane and the masks drop, you put your mask on first, because if you pass out, you're no good to anyone, right? So I really want to implore people to look after themselves and have really healthy, strong boundaries. Be amazing. Be an amazing partner. Be an amazing parent. Be an amazing friend. Be an amazing practitioner, but never to your detriment.
Yeah.
When it starts to affect your own livelihood, your own sleep, your own time out, all of the basic things that we harp on about, you know, that is when you need to pull back. Because
and that's exactly my situation, is that yes, I had to recognize that I had done and I have been doing all of the things that I feel as though I can put out there into the universe, or I can provide for that particular relationship, that friendship. And so it is time, and it has reached a point where I decided I just need to pull back, because it is becoming to my detriment, and I did reach my boundary of how much I can give to that situation. It doesn't mean that I have fully withdrawn or will fully withdraw from that relationship or that friendship, but it means I need to look inward a little bit more now and go, hang on, you've given a lot of energy to this, and so you just need to fill that bucket back up a little bit here and kind of come back into yourself and prioritize other things that you might need some nurturing in your life, because sometimes you can focus too much on one particular thing that really is external to you, and you can get caught up in that quite significantly. And there's nothing wrong with that, because let's face it, we're surrounded by people that we love and we care about. When they go through difficult times, we really want to be there for them. But when we do that, we also have to fill that bucket back up, because if we're giving out too much of ourselves, at some point we are going to burn out. We're going to go into that sort of burnout state where we can't be there for them. So, yeah.
And the other thing that also happens is when you give too much and you put your own needs aside, you're enabling the person. So this is a bit of a dirty word, like to be an enabler. But what does it mean? If I'm doing everything, if I'm solving every single problem for someone, and I am always there whenever they need me at any time, and I'm always jumping, and that person isn't entirely in the capacity or wanting to give back, I'm actually not allowing the person to have the opportunity to solve their own problems, to be emotionally resilient, to sit with their own discomfort, to take responsibility for the impact that it could have upon the person that's doing that, or upon their own well-being. So there you are enabling this helpless behavior. So super important to be aware that every single action that we are taking in terms of relationships, we are creating a dynamic. So then people might start thinking, oh, but so-and-so never does anything. It's because you always come home and you do it, or you tell them that they do it wrong, so you might as well do it yourself.
Yeah.
So then you don't allow that person to have the opportunity to do it. So if you do find yourself in a situation where the dynamic is really off, you're always giving, or you're on the receiving end and you're not, stepping up, have a look at what you are actually creating, because we are always creating. And I talk a lot about consciously creating your days. And something that I really wanted to share with everyone was, after I had this incident that was aggressive and violent, and thank God I wasn't harmed. It was just, really,
it was a really distressing situation.
It was really awful.
Yeah.
But just for our listeners out there, I'm totally okay. So, but it did shake me up a fair bit. One of the things that I proactively do is I'm really aware that when I have a situation that secretes all of these chemicals in my brain that makes me feel extreme emotion like fear or rage or extreme sadness, or I feel unsafe, I'm really mindful that I don't want to sit in that for too long, because I don't want to create a neuro association of a place or a person or an event with that emotion, because then I'm going to be primed to feel that, right?
It's an anchoring situation.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So one of the things that I always do after an unpleasant event is I really work on my belief systems. I do a bit of self-hypnosis, or sometimes if it's really bad, I'll go to a hypnotherapist to really try and sort of like clean out all of that emotion and that association that was created. And then I remind myself, what is my essence? What is my essence? And my essence is bigger than feeling fear. Mm-hmm. My essence is bigger than feeling vulnerable or attacked or that the world is unsafe. Yeah. So, for example, this morning, I went for a really beautiful walk, and there are these beautiful pine trees in this gorgeous park near my home. And I was walking at the crack of dawn. There was like really fresh, crisp air, and I was listening to these really beautiful positive affirmations, and it really reminded me, it resonated. I was excited. I was like looking at the entire event at a completely different perspective. Like, I'm excited because this has forced me to make beautiful, empowering changes.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same. You know what actually has stayed with me is one of our previous discussions where you brought up how the last 20 minutes before going to sleep and the first 20 minutes when you wake up are crucial to, one, how you set the day and how you actually sleep through the night. That has stayed with me since we had that discussion.
You listen to me.
I totally listen. Like, I take a lot from these discussions on both sides. I really do, because we bring so many different expertise to these discussions. And so there's a lot to learn on my side as well. Like, I don't know everything. And so this was new information for me. And I've been very much consciously aware of what's happening to myself now since I've been going through this difficult time with this particular situation, of how I'm processing that before I go to bed, because I don't want to be worrying or stressing or, releasing adrenaline and cortisol at nighttime. I want to be having a really nice sleep, and I have been having really good sleeps, because what I've been doing is I've been journaling. So if anything comes up at nighttime, I've actually been keeping a piece of paper and a pen beside me so that I can just write down and dump any of those thoughts, because I don't want to create a space in my mind where I'm worrying about it unconsciously during my sleep. Like, I don't want that. I want to wake up feeling good. And so when I wake up as well, I'm super conscious of setting my day for the first 20 minutes, because that's what you discussed in a previous podcast. And so again, I haven't been checking my phone, doing anything that could possibly lead to me having negative emotions or physical reactions or creating like an uncomfortable or unpleasant sensation in my body by dwelling or going back to that situation. I've been doing something else. I've been surrounding myself with positivity. I get up and I go and, say hi to my daughter and see what she's doing and did she have a good sleep, and chatting to her and playing and all those sorts of things. And then just really keeping myself away from getting stuck into that conversation or those situations again. I've just completely changed the way that I'm doing things, and that helps a lot, I think.
It helps so much, and I'm so glad that you're mentioning these things, because I want our listeners to know that we're human, right?
Yeah.
We are human, and we experience a lot of the things that we hear our patients talking about, our readers writing to us about. And the thing that I think, like Tracey and I are so passionate about is we're doing our best. Like we're walking our talk, and we are sort of checking in with each other and really consistently pulling ourselves up, consistently being aware of, okay, this has happened, it's had a negative impact on my body, it's had a negative impact in my belief system, what do I need to do to change it? And we're really interrupting it so that we don't get defined. I didn't even think about that event that happened a few weeks ago anymore as a traumatic event. I'm like, okay, that really, really put a bit of a rocker up my tuxedo that I don't ever wear. To make some changes that maybe I needed to make, right? So sometimes the universe forces us to make these changes. And I'm so incredibly grateful that nothing worse happened. So I'm like sitting in gratitude. I'm looking at this as an opportunity rather than sitting into victim mode or getting really depressed about it or dwelling. But, you know, we are thrown, we experience these life events, and we deal with them, and we're proactive in dealing with them.
Yeah, I think that is such an important thing that you're raising right now, is that I think that makes a huge difference in how we go through this journey, in that negative things and traumatic events are always going to come up in some capacity in all different types of categories and all different aspects of our life. But it is honestly an opportunity to look inward and go, because like even with this situation that I've been dealing with this week, all I've done is self-reflect. How could I have managed this differently? Was there something I could have done differently? Like, how could I grow from this situation in a positive way? How can I consider others more? How, like there's a whole range of things that I went through. Instead of reacting the same way and repeating that same cycle and never kind of getting a different perspective, I do try my best, and I am human. So, sometimes I have knee-jerk reactions too, and I make mistakes. I definitely we all make mistakes, right? And sometimes I don't handle situations, when I reflect back to a year ago, the growth that I've taken now is so significantly different. The things that might have happened back then, I would handle completely different now. But each of these events gives me an opportunity to really work out how can I be the best, and how can I manage this in the best possible way possible to move forward on this journey, because I crave knowledge, and I crave to know how I can improve.
I love that so much, and I'm going to get a little bit psychology-ish, right?
It. Yeah, please fix all my problems.
No.
Okay.
But I love what you have just shared, because you are talking about what and how questions, and I actually talk with my patients about this. If you are facing a situation and you start asking yourself why questions. So for example, why did this happen to me? Why was I on the receiving end of like aggression and violence? Why did I do that? Why didn't so-and-so do this? Like the why questions will take us down a rabbit hole, and you will start to secrete all of these hormones that are going to make you feel sad and frustrated and angry. And the why questions don't lead to any problem solving. So this is absolutely pertinent to creating an empowered mindset. When you ask yourself how or why or what questions, you are sending a command to your brain to look for the solution. So you immediately activate the part of your brain that is problem solving oriented. So I ask myself, what can I do differently? What can I do for myself that's going to be nourishing? How can I learn from the situation so that I am not exposed again, right? What this does is, when you are really trying to evaluate or understand the experience that you have gone through, you give yourself these commands that lead you to problem solving, which helps you to feel that you are more in control. And it is scientifically proven that when you are feeling that you are more in control of your life, your thoughts, your circumstances, all of that stress, that survival response begins to go down, because then suddenly you feel that this is an opportunity. This is not something that defines you. This is not something that has a control over you. It is an opportunity for you to kind of go, all right, well, maybe I just need to think about it differently, and I'm going to approach it in a different way. So the how and what questions, they're absolutely gold. So whenever you are trying to analyze or figure a situation out or try and get yourself out of a situation, I really encourage our listeners to activate how and what questions, because those are the ones that will lead you to acting in a more empowered and proactive manner.
I love that. I really, really love all of that. And you know what? I've absolutely loved our conversation today, because we didn't really have a set structure. We really
oh my God, how did you cope without a set structure, Tracey?
Well, look, anyone who knows me knows I don't deal well if I don't have some dot points or some bullet points. But I've really enjoyed this just organic discussion about what we've been going through this week. And because we want to share with people that we have real lives too. We go through ups and downs. We go through traumatic events. And like you, we're trying to navigate our way through these events. And
don't you think it makes us, when we approach them in a positive way, it makes us stronger?
Absolutely.
Like the conversations, the hard conversations we have, or, you know, the vulnerable conversations we have, it makes us bond.
Oh gosh. Okay. So some of the most amazing experiences I've had where there's been a conflict, when both people have come to that conversation and they've been open and they've been honest and they've been authentic, it has progressed that relationship forward in so many beautiful ways, because both people aren't looking at nitpicking at each other. They aren't trying to put the other person down. They're not trying to show blame or push blame on one side or the other. They're coming at it from their genuine, authentic selves. And that has had such a massively positive effect on me, because I've felt resolution. We've reached a point where it's solidified our relationship even more, because people are coming to the table in such a raw, honest
authentic way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I know we left that significant point right to the end of our chat, but
I love
a massive highlight.
Being authentic, because this is part of dealing with life and dealing with difficult emotions. Show up in an authentic manner.
Yeah,
if
honest.
If something knocks you down, come back to your essence. Remember who you are. Do what we're doing. Join us. Start journaling. Start being mindful of your mornings. Start being aware if something has created a limiting belief, a fear-based belief. Put something in your mind that's going to, jolt you out of it. Listen to, motivational speaking. Listen to affirmations. Make something that's going to remind you of how amazing, how powerful, and how unlimited you are.
Let's end it right there, because that's perfect. So we really hope that you've taken something from this chat today, and we'll see you next time.
And be amazing.
The information, views and opinions expressed on this podcast should not be used or treated as a substitute for nutritional, medical, psychological or other advice by a qualified health professional. Hosts and guests on the podcast express their own opinions, experiences and conclusions. Nothing in the podcast should be used to diagnose, treat, cure or prevent any medical condition. The podcast is not intended to replace any medical or mental health treatment. All information and advice provided is for general well-being and does not take individual cases into consideration. Neither Tracey Saltis, Kali Alfaro, or any sponsor endorse the opinions, views or conclusions expressed or shared on the podcast. Tracey Soltis and Kali Alfaro take no responsibility for any symptoms or consequences as a direct or indirect result of the podcast.